Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today in this video, we are going to learn one of the most important and crucial topics in SAP MM, and that is pricing procedure. We'll learn the concepts in a clear and practical way with details on step-by-step configurations and SAP demo. Now pricing in SAP is a very vast topic, hence this is going to be a long video. So I'd request you to watch this video till the end to get a complete understanding of this topic. Now before we start, if you're finding my SAP MM videos helpful, then please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done yet. And if you want exclusive access to in-depth videos, mock interview Q&A videos, and early access to all the new videos on my channel, then please consider joining the channel as a member. After this video, I'll also be posting deep dive videos on various advanced topics in MM pricing for my channel members. So let's start with our today's topic, that is pricing procedure in SAP MM. So first of all, let's understand what is pricing. So to understand this, let's take an example. Let's say that your plant requires a material for which you raise a request for quotation on a vendor. Now against this request for quotation, vendor will submit its quotation, and in this quotation, vendor will basically mention its prices and terms and conditions. Now if we think from the vendor's perspective, to build its prices, the first thing that the vendor will have to do is vendor will have to add the manufacturing cost of the material with its profit margin, and this amount vendor will quote as something called as basic price. That is, the manufacturing cost will basically contain the raw material prices, the processing cost, and the overhead cost. Upon this manufacturing cost, vendor will add its profit margin and then will mention this total price in its quotation as a basic price. Okay, so this is the first element that the vendor will mention in its quotation, that is the basic price of the material. Now depending upon various conditions, vendor may also quote a discount or a surcharge. That is, let's say based on the market conditions or based on the quantity that you want to purchase from the vendor may offer you some discount, or rather than offering a discount, the vendor may also levy some surcharge on this basic price. For example, let's say that you're doing some crash purchasing, that is, you require the material on urgent basis. So in that case, rather than giving a discount, the vendor may levy a surcharge on this basic price. So basically the vendor will quote its basic price, and above this basic price, vendor may also quote a discount or a surcharge depending upon various reasons or various situations. Okay, now at this price, that is the combination of basic price and discount or surcharge, the material will be available at the vendor's premises only. That is, at this cost, the material will be available at the gate of the vendor's factory. Now you have to bring that material from the vendor's premises to your premises. So that particular activity will also incur some cost, and that will be basically the transportation cost for that material. Now for this transportation, you have two options. Either you can ask the vendor to transport the material. So in that case, the vendor will quote the transportation cost as a surcharge only in its own quotation and will deliver the material at your premises. But if you're not asking the vendor to deliver the material, then you'll have to arrange the transportation on your own. And in that case, you will have to pay this transportation cost to a different vendor. That is, you'll have to pay this delivery cost to a transport vendor. Okay, so that particular delivery cost will also become a component of your pricing. So you can see, apart from basic price and discount or surcharge, you also need to incorporate this delivery cost, which will be incurred to transport the material from vendor's premises to your premises. Now, apart from this delivery cost, you will also have certain miscellaneous provisions and taxes. Now, what are these miscellaneous provisions? Let's say that you want your material to be inspected either at the vendor's premises or at your premises once the material is delivered. And for this inspection to happen, you have lined up an inspection agency. So here also, to conduct this inspection, you will have to make some payment to that inspection agency, and that amount also you need to incorporate in your material pricing. Okay, so such kind of pricing elements are basically called as miscellaneous provisions. and based on the tax rate you will also need to pay taxes on that particular material. So these provisions and taxes are also part of your material pricing. And finally, there may be some cash discounts also which will be offered by the vendor based on certain preconditions. And you can see here the vendor may offer some cash discount based on the payment terms. The vendor may tell you that if you make payment within a predefined period, then the vendor may offer you a cash discount. Now, this is a precondition based on which this discount will be applicable. Okay, so this discount is not being offered by the vendor directly. This discount is being offered based on a precondition. Okay, so you can see the pricing contains multiple pricing elements, and each of these pricing elements have their own origin and have their own purpose. Okay, so your pricing is built up of various individual elements, and once you add all these elements, then only you will be able to arrive at your material price, or we can say you will be able to arrive at your cost to company. So you can see in this arrangement you have certain pricing elements against which you will pay directly to the vendor. You have certain pricing elements for which you will be paying to a third party. That is, for a delivery cost, you will be paying to a transporter, and for miscellaneous provisions, you will be paying to the vendor against which those miscellaneous provisions have been incurred. Okay, so in this way we saw that the pricing contains multiple elements. Based on these elements only, the price will be determined. That is, the price at which the product is available in your warehouse. Okay, now let's understand what is the meaning of condition types in SAP. So as we discussed earlier, the pricing of your material contains multiple pricing elements, and all these pricing elements are distinct in nature, and every pricing element has its own origin and its own purpose. So in the system, you need to have distinct elements which basically identify all these pricing conditions. And these elements in SAP are called condition types. These condition types are basically the building block based on which you will configure the pricing of your material. Okay, so you can see each of these pricing elements will be configured in the system in the form of condition types. And you can see each of these conditions can be broadly categorized under these three categories. That is, you have prices, then you have discount or surcharges, which are basically added to these prices, and then you have tax. Okay, so you can see the basic price comes under the category of prices. All these elements, that is discount or surcharge, delivery cost, provisions, and cash discount, come under the purview of discount or surcharges, and its taxes comes under the purview of tax. And all these distinct elements will be configured in the system in form of distinct condition types. So you can see a condition type is a representation in the system of various pricing components used in purchasing. And you can define a different condition type for each kind of pricing elements, such as basic price or discount or surcharge, that is applicable for your business transactions. Now let's understand what is a price built up and what is the meaning of gross, net, and effective price. So as we saw earlier, we had different pricing elements, and all these pricing elements can be combined at different levels to arrive at a particular price built up. So you can see here we have denoted all these pricing elements with these characters, and you can see this basic price is basically called as the gross price. That is the price which does not include any discount or surcharge. And once we add this discount or surcharge to this basic price, then we'll arrive at something called as the net price. This net price is basically the amount that will be paid to the vendor for supply of the material. Okay, and you can see if you have a discount, then you will deduct this discount from this basic price or gross price, and if you have a surcharge, then you will add this particular surcharge to this basic price or gross price, and at this stage system will calculate something called as net price. And to this net price, if you add all these remaining elements, then you will arrive at something called as the effective price. That is the price at which the material will be available in your warehouse, or basically the cost to company for that particular material. So you can see, once you add the net price with all these elements, then you will arrive at this effective price. So you can see the gross price is price without considering any possible discount or surcharge. The net price is gross price with any possible discount or surcharge, and the effective price is net price after deduction of cash discount with allowance of any miscellaneous provisions, delivery costs, and non-deductible taxes. Now, when we talk about taxes, only the non-deductible part will get added to your material price. Against the deductible tax, you will claim the deductions, so that amount you will not be adding to your material price. Only the tax part for which you will not be able to avail the deductions, that tax part only you will be adding to your material price to arrive at this effective price. Okay, so these three prices are very important, and you must understand the meaning and significance of these three prices, that is gross price, net price, and effective price. Now let's understand what is the meaning of condition class and condition category. So you can see we have this condition type which can be broadly classified into these three categories, that is prices, discount or surcharges, and taxes. And within this discount or surcharge, you have these many elements. That is, within this discount or surcharge, you have a general discount or surcharge which is offered by the vendor. Then you have a delivery cost which is like a surcharge only. Then you will have miscellaneous provisions. These are also surcharges which will get added to the material price. And then you have cash discount, which is kind of a discount only, but it has some preconditions based on which those discounts will get calculated. Okay, so you can see the condition type can be broadly classified into these three categories and then finally classified into these categories. So to broadly classify the condition type, you have something called as condition class. In the configuration of the condition type, you will mention this condition class based on which system will understand whether that condition corresponds to a price or discount or surcharge or taxes. And to further classify the condition type, finally, you have something called as condition category. Okay, so you can see here condition class represents the broad category of condition types. The condition category is used to finally define the condition types within a particular condition class. So you have this condition class A, which denotes all the discounts and surcharges in the system. Under this condition class, you have all these categories. For normal discount or surcharges, you will not enter any condition category. So the condition category will be blank, and system will understand that this particular discount or surcharge is the normal discount or surcharge which is quoted by the vendor. Then you have all these other discount or surcharges where you will enter these categories to further define these condition types. Okay, and you can see the condition category also has various control functions. So when you use a condition type which has a condition category as B, that is for delivery cost, then in the purchasing document or in the purchasing order, you will be able to enter a different vendor against that particular condition type. So system allows to enter a different vendor against that particular condition type only because of this condition category. Similarly, for this cash discount, you have this condition category E. Based on this condition category only, system understands that the cash discount is to be proposed from the payment terms. Okay, so this cash discount you will not enter in the purchase order. System will automatically derive this cash discount from the payment terms which you will enter in the purchase order. So this condition category is used to finally define the condition types, and this condition category also has its own control functions. Okay, so you can see the condition class is used to broadly define the condition types, and the condition categories are used to finally define the condition types. That is, within this condition class, you have different condition categories. Okay, so you can see on the screen some of the standard condition types which are there in the system. And you can see each of these condition types are distinct from each other based on multiple control functions. Now we have already discussed the significance of condition class and condition category, and you can see all these four conditions have different condition class and condition category combination. Now apart from these two control functions, you have another element also through which the condition types are configured, and that is called calculation type. Now what is calculation type? The calculation type basically determines how system calculates the total value of any condition. That is, whether the value is to be calculated on quantity basis or percentage basis or absolute basis. Let's say that the vendor quotes a freight charge on percentage basis. That is, the freight is to be calculated by multiplying the basic price with a particular percentage. Then you will have to use that particular condition type in the system which is configured for percentage calculation. Let's say that the vendor quotes an absolute freight. So in that case, we'll have to use the appropriate condition type which corresponds to the absolute freight condition. Okay, so in this way you can see these are the three control functions which basically define a particular condition type. Apart from these three control functions, you have other configurations also which basically decide the behavior of a condition type, but the major control functions are the condition class, the calculation type, and the condition category. And you can see these are some of the standard condition type which are available in the system. That is, FRA1 is for freight on percentage basis, FRB1 is for freight on absolute basis, and FRC1 is for freight on quantity basis. Similarly, for discount, you have all these three condition types. Now you can see for gross price, the calculation type is quantity dependent. That is, whatever unit price you will enter, system will simply multiply that price with the quantity in the purchase order. Okay, so based on this calculation type, the total value of any condition will get calculated. And for each scenario, you will have to configure different condition type based on its calculation type. Okay, now let's understand what is called a condition record. So to understand this, let's take an example. Let's say that you have to purchase a material from a particular vendor and the vendor has quoted these conditions. That is, the vendor has quoted a basic price of 100 rupees with a discount of 10%, and for this material you have a freight charge of 5%. Okay, now once all these prices are finalized, you will enter these prices in the purchase order manually and you will create your purchase order. Okay, now let's say that after some time you again require this material from the same vendor. So what you'll have to do, you will have to again enter all these pricing elements manually in the purchase order. Okay, so you can see every time you have to purchase this material at the same prices and terms and condition, you will have to manually enter the prices in the purchase order. So to facilitate this activity, you can create a master data in the system which will basically contain all these pricing elements based on your required combination. That is, in your system, you can maintain a master data which will basically tell the system that whenever you are purchasing this material from this vendor, these pricing conditions are to be populated in the purchase order. And this master data is called a condition record. That is, based on combination of multiple variables, you will maintain something called as condition record. And what this condition record will contain? This condition record will basically contain values against these pricing elements. The pricing elements or the condition types that we discussed just now in our previous slide, against those condition types, you will maintain these values or you will maintain these condition records. Okay, so you can see if you maintain this condition record, then the purchase order will get created and the prices will be determined by the system. So in this case, you will not be supposed to enter these prices manually. The moment you enter this combination of material and vendor, system will pick the prices from the master data, that is from the condition record, and will populate in your purchase order. So you can see in this particular case where you do not have a condition record, you have a manual price entry, and this may lead to high risk of errors and no consistency. And if you have this condition record, then you will have automatic price determination, and the prices will be accurate and consistent, and the whole process of PO creation will become faster and reliable. So maintaining a condition record has various advantages, and if you have agreed prices and terms and condition with the vendor, then you can enter those prices in the system in form of condition records. These condition records you can use repeatedly to create your purchase order. So the condition records are basically master data for your pricing conditions. Now let's understand the famous pricing technique through which these condition records are saved and then retrieved from the system. So you can see in this diagram, you have this central element, that is the condition type, against which you have to save the condition record. Now this condition record will be saved against multiple combination of the fields of your purchasing document. That is, in our previous example, we saw that against the combination of material and vendor, you would save the prices, and then whenever you will create a purchase order with the same combination of material and vendor, system will automatically propose the prices from the condition record. So to save this condition record, we need to have these combination of fields in the system, and these combination of fields are basically saved in something called as condition table. This condition table basically contains combination of multiple fields of your purchase order. So you can have a condition table which contains combination of material, vendor and purchase organization. You can have another condition table where you will have combination of material, vendor, purchase organization and plant. Okay, so in this way you can combine multiple fields from your purchasing document and you can create multiple condition tables. Now to save the condition record against this condition table and to retrieve these condition records from the system, you have a central element which is called access sequence. Now this access sequence basically contains a list of all these condition tables arranged in a particular sequence. This access sequence is entered in the configuration of the condition type. When you will try to maintain the condition record of this condition type, system will basically call this access sequence. Against this access sequence, you will have list of all the condition tables which system will propose you on the screen, and against your required condition table, you will maintain the condition record. Now when you will create a purchase order, then system will try to find all the possible condition records which are available in the system, which are applicable for your purchasing document, and then we'll see in which sequence those condition records are arranged in the access sequence. And through this access sequence only, system will return the applicable condition record for your purchasing document. Okay, so you can see you have this condition type against which you will maintain this access sequence. This access sequence will contain a list of condition tables. When you will be maintaining the condition record, you will be maintaining these condition records against these tables only. And when you will be retrieving the condition records, this retrieval process will happen through this access sequence. Okay, and these condition types will be arranged in a particular sequence and will be assigned to something called as a pricing procedure or calculation schema. So basically this pricing procedure will contain a list of all the possible condition types which are applicable for your business scenarios, and these condition types will be arranged in a particular sequence to calculate the prices in your purchasing document. And this pricing procedure will be determined in your purchasing document through a schema determination configuration. Basically this schema determination configuration will contain elements which will be derived from your vendor master and your purchase organization. So based on the vendor and the purchase organization that you will enter in the purchasing document, system will determine this pricing procedure, which will contain a list of all the condition types against which you can maintain and retrieve the condition record through this particular setup. Okay, so in this way you can see the pricing technique contains all these elements, that is the condition table, access sequence, condition type and the pricing procedure, and you can maintain the condition record against the condition type through this condition table and then the condition record will get retrieved through this access sequence in your purchasing document, and you will assign this pricing procedure to your purchasing document through this schema determination configuration. So now let's learn about all these elements and their configurations in detail. So you can see the condition table defines the combination of fields that identify an individual condition record. So as we discussed earlier, basically you will be combining multiple fields from your purchasing document, and you will be creating a condition table. Against this condition table only, the condition record will be maintained. And you can see these are some of the standard condition tables which are available in the system. So you can see this table number 18 is for combination of vendor, material, purchase organization and info record category. That is basically this table represents the material info record. Info record is basically a combination of material and vendor master, and it also has an info record category. So basically you combine all these fields and you create this particular table. Then you have this table number 17, which is for plant specific material info record. That is, with vendor, material, purchase organization and info record category, you also have this field plant in this particular table. Then you have this table 16 for combination of contract and contract item. Then you have these general tables also. That is, table number 44 is for vendor, 43 is for material type, and 51 is for invoicing party. Okay, so you can see you have different condition tables which contain a combination of various fields from your purchasing document. Okay, now let's understand what is an access sequence. So as we saw in the earlier pricing technique diagram, that an access sequence is a search strategy that the system uses to find valid data for a particular condition type. The access sequence contains a list of condition tables which are called as accesses, and these accesses are arranged in a sequential manner. That is, you will enter all these condition tables in a sequential manner, and system will read those tables in the particular sequence only. So you can see the sequence decides which condition record have priority over others, and the accesses tell the system where to look first, second and so on until a valid condition record is found. Then in this particular access sequence, you also have an exclusive indicator, that is a checkbox, which basically controls whether the system has to stop the search once a valid condition record is found. That is, if against a table or an access a condition record is found, and against that table this exclusive indicator is activated, then system will stop the search and will not go further into other tables which are below that particular condition table. Okay, then against this access sequence you can also enter certain requirement routines. So before accessing the condition record, system will first read this requirement routine, and if the condition which is entered in that routine is fulfilled, then only system will read the condition record in that particular condition table. Okay, and this access sequence you will enter in the condition type through configuration. That is, in the condition type configuration, you have a field called access sequence. To assign the condition type to an access sequence, you will enter the access sequence in that particular field which is there in the configuration of the condition type. Okay, and you can see this condition type PB00 is the standard condition type for gross price, and in the configuration of this condition type you will have this access sequence 0002 entered. Now this access sequence will contain multiple tables arranged in a sequence. I have only mentioned 3 tables here, but in standard system it contains multiple tables in a particular sequence, and you have an exclusive indicator checkbox and a requirement routine. Now you will be maintaining condition record against any of these condition tables. When the system will try to retrieve the record, then system will start reading from top to bottom, and at each access system will try to retrieve the condition record and populate in your purchasing document. If the system will find this exclusive checkbox against any of these tables against which the condition record is found, then system will stop the search, will return this condition record and will not search further. Okay, we'll see all this in the system, then it will become more clear to you. But you can understand at this stage that the access sequence is basically a list of all the condition tables against which you can maintain the condition record. This access sequence is used to retrieve the condition record from the system. Now let's understand the meaning of time dependent and time independent conditions. So to understand this, let's say that the vendor quotes its prices with different validity. That is, in its quotation, vendor mentions the prices with different valid dates. And the vendor tells you that the prices in the purchase order will get decided based on this validity. Okay, so you can see for a particular period you have different rates which are valid. Okay, now along with this, the vendor also quotes something called as scales. That is, the vendor tells you that the discount will be 10% if the ordered quantity is up to 100 pieces, and the discount will increase to 20% if the ordered quantity is above 100 pieces. Okay, so you can see the discount offered is also dependent upon the quantity which is being ordered. And along with this, you also have a upper and lower limit against all these conditions. That is, when these rates will be proposed in the purchase order, you do not want the end user to change these rates beyond a certain limit. Okay, so in this arrangement, you basically have prices with validity, then you have scales, and you have limits. So this kind of an arrangement is called time dependent conditions. That is, the pricing conditions are time dependent. That is, these rates will be valid for a particular period only. Okay, and in SAP you have specific documents which allow this time dependent condition, and these documents are info record, contract, RFQ, and scheduling agreement. Now in case of RFQ and scheduling agreement, this particular time dependency is controlled through document type. In case of info record and contract, the conditions are always time dependent. And apart from these four documents, you can also save time dependent conditions based on general conditions. That is, based on a particular vendor or a material type or a invoicing party. So you can see with time dependent conditions, we have the facility to save the prices with validity, with scales, and with limits. Okay, and all this is made available through a condition record. Okay, so in our previous slide, we understood what are condition records, how they are saved and how they are retrieved, and these condition records basically allow you to save time dependent conditions. So basically, whenever you will be saving a condition record, you will have the facility of all these things. That is, you will be able to save prices with validity, with scales, and with limits. And all these documents or general conditions are there to facilitate this process. And how this will happen? This will happen through the condition tables, which will basically contain fields which will refer to these documents. Okay, so to have time dependent conditions against these documents, you must have these documents as a field in the condition table. Okay, so as we saw earlier that we have separate condition tables for contract and for info record. So those tables are basically there to save the condition records against info record and contract. Okay, and whenever we are creating any info record or contract, basically we are saving the condition record against that particular table which contains the combination of fields containing these documents. Okay, so basically creating an info record or contract is like saving a condition record against that particular condition table. Okay, and you also have general conditions which you can maintain against these fields through their respective tables. Okay, so the time dependent conditions basically refer to the condition records only, and this is facilitated against all these purchasing documents. Now, contrary to the time dependent condition, you can also have an arrangement where there is no validity, scales or limits. You basically have these prices and conditions which do not have any validity, and these prices are called time independent conditions, and they are entered basically in a purchase order or scheduling agreement or RFQ. And again, for scheduling agreement and RFQ, the time independent conditions are determined through the document type. Okay, so these two documents, that is scheduling agreement and RFQ, have dual nature. They can allow time dependent conditions also through document type configuration, or they can have time independent conditions through different document type configuration. But for purchase order, the conditions are always time independent. So in a purchase order, you will always find conditions without any validity or scales or limits. Okay, but you can create a purchase order through all these documents which basically hold the time dependent conditions. So when you will create a purchase order, you can refer these time dependent conditions, and based on the date of purchase order, system will pick the appropriate prices from these documents. But once you create the purchase order, the prices in that purchase order will always be time independent. Okay, so you can see here the conditions in info record and contract are always time dependent. The condition in purchase order are always time independent. The conditions in RFQ and scheduling agreements are time dependent or time independent based on their document type. And you also have the facility to maintain general conditions based on combination of various fields of the purchasing document, and you can save them with time dependent conditions. Then if the vendor prices vary based on quantity or value, then you can enter same through scales, and the valid time dependent conditions from the info record and outline agreement can be adopted in a purchase order. And as we saw earlier, an upper and lower limit can also be entered against time dependent conditions to prevent end user from changing the conditions in the purchase order beyond a specified value. So when you adopt these info record and outline agreement, then based on this upper and lower limit, you will be allowed to change the prices in the purchase order up to this limit only. Okay, and these time dependent conditions can be maintained either as plant specific or cross plant. That is, in plant specific, you will have plant code also as a variable in the condition table. For cross plant, you will not have the plant code as a variable in the condition table. Okay, and you also have a facility of reference purchase organization where you will maintain the time dependent condition against the reference purchase organization level, and it will be used by other purchase organizations also. Okay, so basically time dependent conditions are condition records which you will save in the system with validity, scales and upper and lower limit. Okay, and time dependent conditions are the conditions which basically have access sequence entered in their configuration. Through that access sequence only, you can maintain the condition record with all these facilities, that is with validity, scales and upper and lower limit. Okay, now let's understand what are subtotals in pricing. So as you can see on the screen, a subtotal stores an intermediate price value during price calculation, and it can be used again later in the pricing procedure. And you can see here the gross price, net price and effective price are also an example of subtotals. Along with these subtotals, you can also have subtotals for taxes and freight or delivery costs. Now this gross price is not technically a subtotal, but in SAP you will have to mark the gross price also as subtotal to calculate further subtotals like net price and effective price. So you can see subtotals can be used to calculate prices step by step and to apply discount, surcharges and taxes on the correct amount, and they can also be used for reporting purpose. And SAP has given multiple system fields which can be used to store the subtotals amount. Okay, so now that we have understood the concept of condition type, the pricing technique and time dependent and time independent conditions, now let's understand what is pricing procedure and why pricing procedure is required in the system. So first of all, let's understand why pricing procedure is required. So to understand that, let's see all these scenarios. So you can see for multiple combinations of material and vendor, we have different pricing elements which are there in the pricing of the material. Okay, and all these arrangements have different combinations of condition types. So you can see as an end user, you must have a particular calculation sheet available in the system so that based on your particular requirement or your particular scenario, you can enter the applicable condition types or the applicable values against those condition types in your purchase order. Okay, so basically to cater to all kind of requirements, you must have a set of condition types which basically represents all your possible scenarios. Now this calculation sheet will basically contain all possible combinations of these condition types, and you will design this pricing procedure based on each of your scenarios. So let's say that you have different pricing structure for your local vendors and your import vendors. Then you will have to create two different pricing procedures for your local procurement and your import procurement. For your local procurement, you will design your pricing procedure which will contain all possible condition types which are applicable for your local procurement. The end user will enter the values against the condition types which are applicable for that particular purchase order. Similarly, for import procurement, you will create a pricing procedure which will contain all possible condition types which are applicable for your import procurement to happen. So to cater to all kind of procurement activities, you must have a calculation sheet which is pre-configured in the system so that the end user is able to enter the condition values in the purchase order. And because of this, you need the entity which is called as pricing procedure. Okay, so you can see a pricing procedure or calculation schema groups together all the condition types that play a part in calculating prices for all possible scenarios in any organization. And you can see this pricing procedure sets out the order in which the condition types are considered in the calculation. And you can see the pricing procedure specifies the following. The pricing procedure decides that which subtotals are arrived at. The subtotals are basically the intermediate calculated amounts which you can use for reporting and you can use for further calculations in the pricing procedure. As we saw earlier, we had three different type of subtotals, that is gross price, net price and effective price. Apart from these subtotals, you can also have other subtotals built up in the system against which you can do further calculations in the pricing procedure. Then it specifies that for which condition types the subtotals are created, then to what extent the price determination process can be carried out manually. That is, whether that particular condition type is a manual condition type or the value of that condition type is to be derived automatically through condition record. Then the basis upon which the system calculates percentage discount or surcharges. Then order in which the condition types are taken into account in the calculation of net or effective prices. Then which requirement must be satisfied for a certain condition type to be considered. So you have a particular column where you will enter a particular routine through which system will basically check whether that particular condition type is to be triggered or not. Then you have account keys and accrual keys which will be required for posting provisions against any condition type. Then you can also enter alternate formula to determine the base value and the calculation formula for any condition type. So this pricing procedure basically contains combination of multiple condition types with various control functions. So you can see on the screen, this is a typical structure of a pricing procedure. It basically has 16 columns. So first column is the step, which basically tells you that in which sequence the calculations are to be done. Then you have this counter column for condition type, which have the same step. They are sorted through this counter. Then you have this condition type column, where basically you will enter the condition types. Then you have description of these condition types. Then you have this from column, which is basically used to calculate the condition values which have percentage calculation type. That is, for condition types which are calculated through percentage basis, you can enter a step number here through which system will basically calculate the value of this particular condition type. So you can see this condition type is percentage surcharge on gross. If you enter step 1 here, so basically system will calculate the value of this condition by multiplying the percentage to the gross price. This gross price is basically entered in this step 1 here. Okay, then you have a 2 column also. This is basically used to sum all the values from this from step to the to step. So you can see here you have from step is 20 and to step is 30. So basically system will add all the values from condition type with step 20 to condition type with step 30. Okay, then you have this manual column. This basically controls whether this condition type will be automatically triggered in the pricing procedure, or you will have to manually enter this condition type in the pricing procedure in the purchase order. Then you have this mandatory column. This basically controls whether a particular condition type is mandatory. Without entering that condition type in the pricing procedure, you will not be able to save your purchase order. Then you have this column called statistical. Now, as we have discussed, the net price is calculated by adding the basic price with discount and surcharges. Now, any discount or surcharge, if you mark as statistical, that will not be considered to calculate the net price. And you can see this cash discount is marked as statistical. So although this is a discount, but since we have marked this as statistical, so this particular condition type will not be considered to calculate the net price. Then you have this print indicator through which you can print that particular condition in the output. Then you have this very important subtotal column. This is basically used to save the value against any of this line against a particular variable, which is basically a subtotal variable. Okay, so basically in the system, multiple subtotals have been provided against which you can save the entry against this particular line here. And this subtotal you can use for reporting purpose, and you can also use for saving data for your next calculation. Okay, so you can see this S stands for effective price. So whatever value will be available in this particular row will be saved in the effective price. Similarly, this 9 stands for the gross price. So to tell the system that which particular condition type is to be considered as a gross price, you have to enter this subtotal 9 here. Okay, then you have this requirement column, which is basically a routine through which this particular condition type is called by the system. So before calling this particular condition type, system reads this requirement, and if this requirement is fulfilled, then only the condition type is triggered in the pricing procedure. Okay, then you have these two columns called alternate calculation type and alternate calculation base value. So as we saw earlier, we have different calculation types like percentage based, quantity based, or absolute. If you want deviation from that calculation type, then you can enter a routine in this particular column. Then system will ignore the calculation type of that particular condition type and will take the calculation type from this particular routine only. Similarly, the base value also, if you want deviation from the standard system, then you can enter a routine here, and system will pick the base value as per the routine that is entered in this column rather than from the condition type which is entered in this column. Okay, then you have these two columns called accounting key and accrual key. These two keys are basically used to post the financial entries. The accounting key is used specifically for purchase account management. The company codes where purchase account management is active. For those company codes, system will post additional accounting entries against purchase account management. So condition types where provisions are to be done, for them you can enter an account key for posting against purchase account management accounting lines. Okay, then you have this accrual key, which is used for provisioning. As we discussed earlier, we will have multiple provisions in our pricing procedure. For posting values against those provisions, you must have certain accrual accounts. So the account determination for those accrual accounts will be done through this accrual key. And you can see these accrual keys will only be entered against condition type, which are to be used for provisions. Okay, now let's understand the significance of this step and counter. That is, let's understand how system determines the sequence of conditions. So you can see there are two examples. In first example, you have all these condition types against same step, and in the second example you have these condition types against different steps. So in the first example, you can see that all these discounts are there with the same step. So whenever you'll have condition types arranged under same step, the sequence will be decided based upon how you enter them manually in the pricing. So you can see first, if you enter RA00 as 2% and RB00 as 10 rupees, system will first calculate this 2% on 100 rupees and then will deduct this 10 rupees. So you will have 98 here and then minus 10, the net price will become 88 rupees. Okay, and this could happen only because you had all these conditions under same step. But if you have different steps, then even if you enter them manually, system will always sort or arrange them in the manner in which they have been entered in this pricing procedure. Okay, so if you have different steps and if you enter this RA00 manually also before RB00, system will sort them as per this pricing procedure only. Okay, so this RB00 will come first as per this step 10 and RA00 will come second as per this step 12. Okay, so in this case also, similar to the above case, this particular RA00 was entered before RB00, but system sorted them as per the steps which are there in the pricing procedure. So this step plays a very significant role. Based on the step only, system will decide the sequence in which the calculation is to be done. And you can see in this case, first system will apply this discount of 10 rupees and then will calculate 90 rupees from here and then will apply this 2% discount on 90 rupees and finally calculate the net price as 88.2 rupees. Okay. So you can see here, step number determines the sequence in which the condition types are considered to calculate the net or effective price. This sequence cannot be changed in the document even if the conditions are entered manually. Condition types assigned to the same step are sorted using counter. So if you have all these condition types with same steps, based on the counter, system will pre-propose those conditions in the pricing. But if you have marked certain condition types as manual, then system will not pre-populate and you can enter them manually as per your requirement. And based on the sequence in which you enter them manually, system will do the calculation. So you can see with these condition types with same step number, the order of manual entry decides the point at which the condition type is considered for calculation of net or effective price. Okay, so this step plays a very important role. Based on this step only, system sorts all the condition types in the pricing procedure. If multiple condition type have same step, then based on your manual entry, system will decide the calculations. In case of condition type with different steps, even if you enter them manually, system will automatically sort them as per their steps entered in the pricing procedure. Now let's understand how this pricing procedure determination happens in any purchasing document. So you can see This pricing procedure gets determined through combination of two variables or two factors. And these two factors are schema group for purchasing organization and schema group for vendor. Okay, and this schema group for purchasing organization is configured against one or more purchasing organization. So if you have multiple purchasing organization, you can group those purchasing organizations into individual schema groups, and this schema group vendor is maintained in the vendor master in the purchasing data. So you can see this particular assignment is done in the configuration. This particular entity is created in the configuration but is assigned in the master data. Okay, so based on these two combinations, the pricing procedures are determined. Now let's understand the pricing procedure determination through an example. So you can see you have three purchase organizations, out of which two purchase organizations have been assigned to one schema group and one purchase organization has been assigned to a different schema group, and you have these two schema groups for vendor created in the system. So based on these two tables, you have these combinations possible. So you can configure pricing procedure determination independent of these two schemas also, that is against a blank schema group for purchase organization and a blank schema group for vendor. And based on all these combinations, system will check what schema group has been assigned to your purchase organization, which is entered in the purchase order, and what schema group has been assigned to your vendor. Based on that combination, system will determine the applicable pricing procedure. And if the combination of schema groups derived from the purchasing document is not found in the configuration, then system will take the standard pricing procedure, that is RM all zeros, and this particular pricing procedure will be triggered automatically by the system. So basically this pricing procedure gets determined from the combination of purchase organization and the vendor master. Now let's learn the process of pricing procedure determination through a real world example. So let's say that in your organization you have two different pricing procedures for local procurement and import procurement. That is, for procurement from local vendors, you have a particular pricing procedure, and for procurement from foreign vendors, you have another pricing procedure configured in the system. Now, to determine these two pricing procedures for their applicable scenarios, you can have two methods through which you can do this configuration. That is, you have two options for doing the configuration for the pricing procedure determination for these two pricing procedures. So in method 1, what we'll do, we'll create separate purchase organizations for local and import procurement, and we'll assign these two purchase organizations to separate purchase organization schema, and we'll keep our vendor schema as blank. That is, for each vendor, we'll not enter any vendor schema, and we'll configure these two pricing procedures against these two purchase organization schema with this blank vendor schema. So the end user will have to enter the appropriate purchase organization, and based on the purchase organization which is entered in the purchase order, system will determine this purchase organization schema, and through this purchase organization schema, system will determine the appropriate pricing procedure. So in this method, the end user has to enter the correct purchase organization in its purchase order. Through that, the correct pricing procedure will get determined. Now in the second method, what we'll do, we'll create a single purchase organization which will be applicable for both local and import procurement, and we'll have to create two separate vendor schema for local and import vendors, that is for local and foreign vendors. Okay, so in this case, while creating the vendor master, the end user will have to enter the correct vendor schema, and from the vendor schema, the correct pricing procedure will automatically get determined in the purchase order. So in this case, you have one purchase organization and two vendor schemas. Based on the vendor schema which is entered against the vendor master, system will determine the correct pricing procedure in the purchase order. In this method 1, you have two separate purchase organizations which are for local and import procurement, which are assigned to two different purchase organization schema, and here you can keep the vendor schema as blank. That is, you will not enter any vendor schema in any any of the vendors that are created in your organization, and you will configure against these two purchase organization schema only, with keeping the vendor schema as blank, and pricing procedure will get determined as per the purchase organization which is entered in the purchase order. Okay, so in this way you can design your own pricing procedure determination based on various scenarios and various available pricing procedures in your system, so that the correct pricing procedure is determined while creating the purchasing documents. Okay, so now let's finally see how this price determination process happens in the system, where we'll see how the pricing procedure gets determined and how the condition records against the condition types are determined by the system. So you can see you have a purchase order against which you have entered this purchase organization, this vendor code, this plant code, and this material code, and you are procuring a quantity of 10 pieces. Now from the combination of the vendor and the purchase organization, the pricing procedure or the calculation schema will get determined. This calculation schema or pricing procedure will contain multiple condition types, and against those condition types, system will check which access sequence have been assigned in the configuration. So you can see in this condition type PB00, the access sequence 0002 is assigned, and system understands that for this particular condition type, the price determination has to be done. So in the next step, what system will do? System will check all the condition tables which are there in this particular access sequence. So you can see this access sequence contains multiple tables against which this exclusive checkbox have been marked. Then system will check what all condition records have been maintained against all these tables. So you can see system was able to find two condition records, one against condition table plant info record and one against condition table info record. That is, system was able to determine the condition records for info record with plant and info record without plant. Okay, and you can see in this condition record you have a basic rate of 50 rupees and you have scale also, that is from 50 pieces this basic rate will change to 48 rupees. Okay, and in this particular condition record you have 60 rupees maintained. Now which condition record system will pick? System will pick the condition record after matching the fields from your purchasing document and after checking which condition record is coming first in this particular access sequence. So you can see the condition record against this particular table is matching with the fields of this purchase order. So you have the same plant available here. So system will determine this price in the purchasing document. And why system determine this 50 rupees? Because our order quantity is 10 pieces. So up to the order quantity of 50 pieces, this particular price is applicable. So through this combination, system picked this 50 rupees in the purchase order. Now let's say that our purchase order quantity is more than or equal to 50 pieces. Then this particular price will be picked in the purchase order. Okay, so you can see based on this condition record and this scale, system is able to determine these conditions in your purchase order. Now let's say that you are creating a purchase order for a different plant. That is, this time the plant code is 2000. Then what system will do? Then this particular info record will not be applicable because the plant code will not be matching, and system will check the next table where system will find a matching condition record. Okay, and in this purchase order, system will propose this price here. Okay, so you can see in this way this whole price determination process happens. First, from the purchase order, the calculation schema or pricing procedure is determined. Against this pricing procedure, you will have multiple condition types. From the condition type, the access sequence will get determined. From the access sequence, the condition tables will get determined. Against this condition tables, system will check for all possible condition records. And if this exclusive checkbox is marked, then once the system finds the first valid condition record, system will stop the search and then will populate this particular condition record in your purchase order. Okay, now condition types where this access sequence are not entered, for those condition types you will be entering the values manually in the purchase order as per your requirement. So this is the whole price determination process that happens in purchasing documents in SAP. Now let's see what all T codes are there for configuration and maintaining the master data. So again, you can see you have a purchase order where you have a combination of purchase organization schema and vendor schema. This configuration is done through T code OMFO. Through this particular configuration, the pricing procedure is determined. The pricing procedure is configured through T code M/08. This pricing procedure contains condition types. The condition types are configured using T code M/06. Then this condition type will contain the access sequence. This access sequence is configured using T code M/07. And this access sequence contains multiple condition tables. And finally, the condition records can be maintained either through the purchasing documents like info record or contract, or generally through T code MEK1. Okay, now SAP recommends that for info record and contract, you must maintain the condition record through these T codes only. Okay, for general conditions you can use this T code MEK1, but for maintaining condition records against info record you must use this T code ME11 to create the info record and then maintain the condition record through that particular info record. Similarly, for contract item, to maintain the condition record you have to use this T code ME31K, which is used to create the contract in SAP. And this condition tables is matched with the PO fields to fetch this condition records in your purchase order. Okay, so in this way, we understood the whole pricing process in SAP MM. We understood what is called condition types. Then we understood what are condition records and how they can be maintained and retrieved through pricing technique, which basically contains condition tables and access sequence. And finally, we understood what is called a pricing procedure and how pricing procedure determination happens through combination of purchase organization schema and vendor schema. Now let's move on to SAP and see all these configurations, and then we'll configure our own pricing procedure where we'll enter some custom condition types, and we'll see how this pricing procedure gets triggered in our purchase order. And we'll maintain some condition records also, and we'll see how these condition records are retrieved and determined in the purchase order. Okay, so let's move on to SAP and see everything in action. So first of all, we'll see the configuration of condition types, because condition types are the basic building blocks for pricing procedure. So we'll go to SPRO, SAP reference IMG, materials management, purchasing, conditions, define price determination process, and you can see we have the link for define condition types. So let's execute this and we'll go to set pricing condition types purchasing. And you can see here, these are the condition types which have been configured in the system for purchasing. And against each condition type, you will find the description, the condition class, and the calculation type. So as we discussed, this condition class basically denotes the broader category for the condition type. And in our purchasing, we have two main categories, that is prices and discount or surcharge. So you can see for each of the condition type, you will have this condition class, and you will also have the calculation type, that is based on which formula system will calculate the value of that particular condition. So first of all, we'll see the configuration of the standard gross price condition, and that is PB00. So we'll click on position and we'll enter PB00. And you can see this condition type PB00 is for gross price. The condition class is prices and the calculation type is quantity. That is, the total value of this particular condition type will be calculated by multiplying the PO quantity with the unit rate. Okay, so to go to the configuration of any of these condition type, either you can double click here or you can select this condition type and click on this particular icon here. So let's double click on PB00. And you can see these are the configurations related to this condition type PB00. we'll discuss the main configuration elements which are important for our MM process. So you can see here you have the key for the condition type, that is PB00, and this is the description, that is gross price. And here you can see this particular condition type has been assigned to an access sequence. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, to maintain condition record against any condition type, you must have access sequence assigned to that particular condition type. Through this access sequence only, system will be able to access the tables against which you will maintain the condition record for this particular condition type. So the first configuration is assigning an access sequence to this particular condition type. And wherever you will find this field as blank, for those condition types, you will not be able to maintain the condition record. Okay, so this particular PB00 is a condition type for which you can maintain the condition record through this particular access sequence. So here you can see this condition type has been assigned to this access sequence. Then you have this particular block which is for control data 1, and the most important configuration here is the condition class, that is B here, that stands for prices. Then you have calculation type which is entered as C, that is for quantity based calculation. And here you have the third important configuration, that is the condition category, which basically gives a more finer definition for this particular condition type. That is, under this condition class you have this condition category, and the condition category is H, that stands for basic price. Then you have the rounding rule that basically determines how you are going to round off the value which is calculated against this condition type. And you can see currently it is selected as commercial, but you can select this as round up or round down. You can read the documentation about this configuration by keeping your cursor here and pressing F1. And you can see in the standard rounding rule, values are rounded off according to business standards, and the example is given here. Then in rounding rule A, values will be rounded up, and rounding rule B, the values will be rounded down. So this is how system rounds up the figures against the condition type based on this particular configuration. Then you have this group condition, which is basically used to group together multiple lines of your purchasing document and then calculate the condition value based on the grouping of such lines. Okay, then you can see you have this particular block available for changes which can be made. This particular section basically contains the controls which are related to whether you can make changes to the values in the condition type in the purchasing document. And you can see the first configuration is manual entries. Now this particular configuration controls whether you can make manual entries against this particular condition type in the purchasing document. That is, if you have condition records available against the condition type, then whether you can make manual entries or not, and whether the manual entry or the automatic entry will take precedence is decided from this particular configuration. And you can see currently this is selected as no limitations. So for this particular condition type, if you make entries manually, then also system will accept that entry, or if the entry is determined automatically through condition record, then that also will get proposed in the purchasing document. Now if you take a drop down, you have all these options available. Now if you select A, that stands for free, then this particular field will become freely definable. That is, if the condition record is available, then it will come in the purchasing document in editable mode, and you will be able to change the value against that condition type in the purchasing document. If the condition record is not available, then you will not be able to add that particular condition type manually in the purchasing document. Then if you have selected B here, then you can see automatic entry has priority. So if condition record is available against that condition type, then it will get proposed in the purchasing document and you will not be able to change that. But you will be able to add that particular condition type manually in the purchasing document. Then you can see you have C, that stands for manual entry has priority. Now if you have selected this option, then if you make manual entries against the condition type, then system will ignore the condition record if it is maintained against that particular condition type. So if you make entries manually, system will not read the condition record and will populate the value which you have entered manually in the purchasing document. And finally you have D, that stands for not possible to process manually. Now this will behave as B only, that is, the system will propose the condition record in the purchasing document and you will not be able to change that, but you will also not be able to add that particular condition type manually in the purchasing document. So neither you will be able to change the values against that particular condition type, nor you will be able to add that condition type manually. Here in the case of B, you will be able to add that condition type manually, but the value which is proposed automatically you will not be able to change. In case of C, if you enter manually, system will ignore the condition record. In case of A, system will propose the value from the condition record, but that will be editable. But if the condition record is not available, you will not be able to add that particular condition type manually. And in case of no limitations, the system will allow you to enter manually also, and system will allow you to change the condition record value also if it is proposed by the system. Now remember that this particular option, that is manual entry has priority, will only work when you will mark the particular condition type as manual in the pricing procedure. Okay, now you have this particular option, that is amount or percent. Then only you'll be able to change the amount or the percentage which is entered against the particular condition type. If you deactivate this checkbox, then you'll not be able to change the amount or percent against the particular condition type. Okay, then you have these two checkboxes for header condition and item condition. Now if you activate this checkbox, then you will be able to add this particular condition type in the header of the purchasing document, and if you activate this checkbox, then you will be able to add this particular condition type in the item of the purchasing document. Then you have this quantity relation checkbox. This checkbox basically allows you to change the conversion factor of the unit of measurements in the pricing procedure of the purchasing document. That is against this particular condition type. If there is a conversion factor for unit of measurements, that conversion factor you will be able to change in the purchasing document if this checkbox is activated. Then you have this delete checkbox. If this is activated, then you will be able to delete this particular condition type from the purchasing document. Then you have this value checkbox. This checkbox basically allows you to make changes in the calculated value of the condition type. That is, against this amount that you will enter, system will calculate the total condition value. If you want to allow the end user to change that calculated condition value also manually, then you will have to activate this checkbox. Then you have this checkbox for calculation type. Now if you activate this checkbox, then in the purchasing document against that particular condition type, you will be able to change the calculation type. Now the calculation type will come from this particular configuration against the condition type. But if you activate this checkbox in the condition type configuration, then in the purchasing document, you will be able to change this calculation type manually against the particular condition type. Then you can see you have this particular section for the master data of the condition type. This particular section basically contains default values for the condition record that you will maintain against this particular condition type. And these default values are proposed valid from date and proposed valid to date. That is, when you will maintain the condition record, system will automatically propose a valid from and a valid to date, and that will be controlled from this particular configuration. And you can see currently the proposed valid from date is the today's date. That is, when you will be creating the condition record, the current date will be pre-populated or will be defaulted in the valid from date, and the valid to date will be pre-filled with this particular date. Okay, then you have the field for reference condition type. Now if you want to transfer the master data of a condition type from one application to another, then you can use this reference condition type, and along with this reference condition type, you will also have to enter the reference application. Then you have this pricing procedure. This pricing procedure is basically used to propose supplementary conditions against this particular main condition in the condition record which you will maintain. In the condition type, if you maintain this pricing procedure, then when you will be maintaining the condition record, along with this particular condition, you will also be allowed to enter other supplementary conditions. Those supplementary conditions in the condition record will come from this particular pricing procedure. Okay, then this particular section is for scales. We have already discussed that scales are for entering condition record with variable quantity or variable value. And the most important configuration is the scale base type, that is on which basis the scales will be entered against the condition record. And you can see for this condition type PB00, you have quantity scale, that is based on quantity. You will be able to enter various scales against the condition record. Okay, then in this control data 2, you have two most important checkboxes, that is for currency conversion and for accruals. Now, if you activate this checkbox, then if the currency in the condition record is different from the document currency, then system will do the currency conversion and will show the values in the purchasing document accordingly. Let's say that you have maintained the condition record with a particular currency and you are creating a purchase order with different currency. So system will take the conversion factor and will show the condition value in the pricing procedure in the purchase order accordingly. So for showing the converted value in the purchase order, you can activate this particular checkbox. Then you have this accruals checkbox. Now this checkbox is used for condition types which are basically created for entering provisions in the purchase order, like a freight charge which is to be paid to a third party, that is to a transporter, or an inspection charge which is to be paid to an inspection agency. So for those conditions, you have to mark this accruals checkbox. When you will be posting the goods receipt, system will take the accrual key which is maintained against this particular condition type in the pricing procedure, and against that accrual key you will have to maintain the GL accounts, and system will make entries against those GL accounts which you will clear and make payments to those third party vendors. So the condition types which are to be entered as provisions in the purchase order, against those condition types you have to mark this accruals checkbox, and against those condition types the value will be posted to separate GL accounts which will be cleared to make payment to the third party vendors. Okay, so this accruals checkbox is very important, and if you mark this checkbox, then you will have to enter something called as accrual key in the pricing procedure against this particular condition type. Then you have this particular field called exclusion. Now this particular field is used to exclude any condition type from the pricing procedure based on predefined routines. Okay, so if you enter an exclusion indicator here, then you will have to enter a requirement routine in the pricing procedure. Based on combination of this exclusion indicator and that requirement routine, system will exclude a particular condition type from your pricing procedure while creating the purchase order. This is an indicator which is entered in the configuration of condition type, and along with this indicator we use the requirement routine to exclude any condition type in the pricing procedure. Okay, now let's see some more standard condition types. So we'll go back and let's open this condition type RA00, that stands for discount percentage on net, and you can see the condition class is discount or surcharge and the calculation type is percentage. So let's double click this and you can see this condition type is for discount and there is no access sequence assigned to this particular condition type. So this condition type you will be entering manually in the purchase order, or you can include this condition type as a supplementary condition to your gross price in the condition record. Now remember that you will be able to add this condition type as supplementary condition only when you have entered a pricing procedure against the configuration of the gross price that we saw earlier in the configuration of the gross price condition type. Okay, so you can see for this condition type RA00, the condition class is A, that is for discount or surcharge. The calculation type is A, that stands for percentage, and the condition category is blank. Okay, so this particular discount is the general discount which is provided by the vendor along with its basic price. And you can see here you have an entry against this plus minus field and the entry is negative. That is, when you will make entries against this particular condition type, system will automatically convert that entry to a negative value. So to tell the system that whether this condition type is for a discount or surcharge, you have this particular field available. And if we see the condition type for surcharge, let's open ZA00 and you can see ZA00 is for surcharge percentage on net, and if you open this condition type you can see the condition class is discount or surcharge. The condition category is blank, so this is a normal surcharge which is levied by the vendor on its basic price, but this indicator is entered as A, that stands for positive. So based on this indicator, system will understand whether the amount is to be deducted from the basic price or the amount is to be added to the basic price. Now let's see some of the standard delivery cost. So we'll go to condition type FRA1. And you can see this FRA1 is for freight in percentage. The condition class is discount or surcharge, and the calculation type is percentage. If we open this condition type, here you can see the condition category has been maintained as delivery cost. So this particular condition category basically differentiates this condition type from the surcharge condition type. In the surcharge condition type, we had condition category as blank, and we had this positive entry against this plus minus field. In this particular condition type, we have the same entry against this field and these two fields, but we have the condition category as B, that stands for delivery cost. And from this condition category, system will understand that this is a freight charge which is to be paid to a third party vendor, or basically a transporter. Okay, and through this particular condition category only, system will allow you to enter a separate vendor against this condition type in your purchase order. Okay, so this condition category has control functions inbuilt in the system, which is predefined by SAP. Through this condition category only, system understands how this particular condition type has to behave in the purchasing document. So because of this condition category B only, system will allow you to enter a different freight vendor against this condition type in your purchase order. Then against this condition type, you can also see that the accruals checkbox has been activated. So basically this freight charge will be a provisional entry in your purchase order. This freight charge will not be paid to the main vendor, but it will be paid to a separate freight vendor. And to make that payment, you will need to make entries in a separate GL. For that, this accruals checkbox will be ticked. And for any condition type, if you activate this checkbox, that particular condition type will not be considered to calculate the net price in your purchase order. Okay, so this accruals will basically tell the system that this is a condition type for provisions, and this is not to be included in the net price of your purchase order. Now let's see the condition type for cash discount. So we'll enter SKTO. And you can see for cash discount also, the condition class is discount or surcharge, and calculation type is percentage. But if you open this condition type, you will find the condition category is E here, which stands for cash discount. And this entry only will basically tell the system that this particular discount is to be populated from the payment terms. Okay, when you will enter the payment term in your purchase order, based on that payment terms configuration, system will automatically propose the cash discount percentage. Okay, so this condition category has that particular control function that it basically transfers the cash discount which is maintained against the payment term to your condition type amount. And you can see for this condition type, we also maintain manual entry as D here. That is, you will not be able to process this condition type manually in your purchasing document. System will automatically enter the cash discount from the payment terms which you will enter in the purchase order. Okay, so in this way, we saw different condition types, and we saw how this condition category are entered, and we also saw that how different discount and surcharges are further differentiated through this field, that is condition category. Now that we have discussed the configuration related to the condition type, now let's see the configuration related to the pricing technique. That is, we'll see the condition table and the access sequence configuration. So we'll open SPRO, SAP reference IMG, materials management, purchasing, conditions, define price determination process, and you can see we have this link for maintain condition tables. Let's open this one. And you can see you have three options. You can create the condition table, change the condition table, and display the condition table. So let's go to this display condition table. And if you take a drop down, you will find all these standard tables which are provided by SAP against different fields of your purchasing document. And you can see you have table 16 for contract item. If you open this table, let's press enter. You can see this particular table contains two fields. One is the purchasing document, that is the contract number, and the item of the purchasing document, that is the contract item. Okay, if we go back, let's take a drop down. Then you can see these two standard tables are for material info record. This is for material info record, and this is for plant specific material info record. Now, if you open this table, let's press enter. You can see it has 5 fields, that is supplier, material, purchase organization, plant code, and info record category. So whenever you will be creating the info record, you will basically be creating a master data for a combination of material and vendor. So you will be maintaining the info record for the combination of vendor code, material code, purchase organization, plant, and info record category. Okay, so this particular table contains basically these 5 fields, and whenever you will create any info record and you will create that info record by entering the plant code also, then system will save the condition record in this particular table only. So when you are entering prices in the info record and you enter the plant also, then system will access this table and make entries against this table against the condition record. Okay, now if you go back and if we take this particular table that is for material info record, then you will find you have these 4 fields here and the plant code is not there. So if you create info record without entering the plant, then system will save the condition record against this table. So you have supplier, material, purchase organization, and info record category. Okay, so in this way you can verify other tables also, which are basically combination of multiple fields of your purchasing document. And you can see these are the tables for general conditions, that is you have a table for material type, then for a vendor, then for vendor condition group, and for other fields of your purchasing document. Now for these general conditions you will be maintaining condition record through T code MEK1, but for these condition tables which basically refer to the info record or the contract, you will be maintaining the condition record through that particular document only. That is, when you will be creating the info record or the contract, you will basically be maintaining the condition record against these tables. But for general conditions, you will be entering the condition record through T code MEK1. Okay, now let's see the configuration related to access sequence. So we'll go back and you can see we have defined access sequences for purchasing. So let's open this. So you can see we have all these access sequences configured in the system, and against our condition type PB00, we had this particular access sequence entered in the configuration. So let's verify that. So we'll go to the condition type configuration. We'll go back. Let's open PB00. Let's double click this and you can see in the condition type PB00, access sequence 0002 has been entered. And whenever you will enter condition record against this condition type, system will call this access sequence. And here we can see the configuration related to this access sequence. So you can see 0002 is for gross price. To see the configuration, we'll select this access sequence and we'll double click on accesses. And you can see all these tables are arranged in this particular sequence here. So you have all these accesses which basically denote these tables in the system that we just saw. So you can see we have this table number 16 which stands for contract item. Then we have table 17 which is for material info record plant specific. Then we have table 18 which is for material info record without plant code. So you can see all these tables are arranged in a particular manner, and whenever system will try to retrieve the condition record, system will read the condition record in this sequence only. That is, from the first table to the last table, system will try to search for the condition record, and whenever a condition record is found, system will return that condition record to your purchasing document. Now you can see you have a column for requirement. So before accessing this particular table, system will first read this requirement, that is basically a routine. System will read this particular routine, and if the condition is fulfilled, then only system will read this table and the condition record if it is maintained against this table. Okay, and then you have this column for exclusive checkbox. Now if you have marked this checkbox, then if the system finds the condition record against this particular access, system will immediately stop the search and will no further search for any other condition record against these tables which lie below this particular entry. So you can see, let's say that system found a condition record against this table. That is, system found that an info record has been created for the combination of material, vendor and plant, and system returns this condition record. Now since this checkbox has been activated, system will not do any searches in all these tables which lie below this particular table. So even if you have a condition record maintained at this particular table, system will not read this condition record. Why? Because system has found a condition record at this level, and because this checkbox is activated, so system will not do any search below this. Now if you deactivate this checkbox, then system will return this condition record also, and system will return this condition record also. Okay, so for any of these accesses, if you have activated this exclusive checkbox, system will stop the search if the condition record is found against any particular condition table. Okay, now if you want to verify the fields also, then you have to select this access and double click on fields. So you can see these are the fields of the purchasing document which are assigned to the fields of the condition table. So this is how system matches these tables from your purchasing document to your condition table and then searches for the condition record. So in this way we saw that you can maintain an access sequence under which you will maintain accesses which will basically contain a condition table. System will read through all the accesses and will find out whether any condition record has been maintained or not. Now when you will maintain the condition record also, then also system will propose all these tables in this sequence only. Now for our condition type PB00, if we want to maintain the condition record through info record, then you must have those tables in your access sequence which refer to your info record. So whenever you are creating any info record, system first determines the pricing procedure. If in the pricing procedure system finds the condition type PB00, then system will find that against condition type PB00 this access sequence is entered, and against this access sequence you have tables which refer to the info record. And based on what type of info record you are creating, system will maintain entry in the particular table against the condition record. So in this way we understood the significance of condition tables and access sequence. Now let's see the configuration of pricing procedure. So we'll go back and you can see you have set calculation schema purchasing. Now this configuration is for the pricing procedure. So let's open this. And you can see we have all these pricing procedures available in the system. Now let's see the standard pricing procedure which is given by SAP. So you can see this is the standard pricing procedure. To see the configuration against this pricing procedure, we have to select this and double click on this control data folder. And you can see this is the configuration of the pricing procedure which basically contains all these columns. Now let's understand all these columns one by one. So you can see the first column is for a step. So as we discussed, this step basically determines the sequence of the condition types in the pricing procedure. And if you have assigned multiple condition type with the same step, then you have to enter this counter to basically sort them within the particular pricing procedure. So you have this step and counter, and then you have this condition type column. So in this particular column, you will be entering all the possible condition types which are applicable for your purchasing process and which you want to populate in your purchasing document. So you can see this particular column basically contains all the possible condition types which are applicable for your procurement process. Okay, and you can see against this particular column you have certain rows where no condition types have been entered. Now these rows are basically used to calculate the subtotals and display in the purchasing document. Then you have this from column. Now basically this column is used to determine the base value for the condition type which have calculation type as percentage. That is, for any discount surcharge which is calculated on percentage basis, on which value that particular percentage is to be calculated is decided from this particular column. So you can see against this particular line, that is against condition type RA01, which stands for discount on gross value, we have entered this entry 1 here. Now what this entry will do, this is basically the step number against which this discount is to be calculated, and you can see the step number is 1, which stands for the gross price. Okay, so this particular discount will get calculated at this step only through this entry in the from column. Now if you do not make any entry in this from column against any condition type which has calculation type as percentage, then system will take the base value by calculating the net price up to this particular condition row. That is, you can see against this condition type no entry has been done in this particular column, and this particular condition type is calculated on percentage basis. So how system will calculate the value? System will basically add up all the condition values which are lying above this particular row, and on that value system will apply this particular discount. Okay, so if you do not enter any step number, then system will calculate the net value up to this particular row and then calculate the value for this particular condition type. If you enter a step number in this from column, then system will consider this particular step only to calculate this particular discount or surcharge. And if you enter a two step also, then first system will add all the values which are there against from step to the two step and then apply this discount. Okay, and also if it is a subtotal line like this line, then this from and to step which is entered in these two columns will basically add up the value between these two steps and then return against this particular row. So this from step is basically to determine the base value for percentage calculation, and this two step is basically to add all the values from this step to this step, and if it is entered against any percentage line, then this summed up value will be taken as a base for calculating the discount or surcharge. Okay, then you have this manual column. Now if you activate this checkbox against any of these condition types, then this condition type will not be defaulted in your purchasing document. So this manual checkbox basically tells the system that this particular condition type will be entered manually in the purchase order. Now if you have maintained condition record against any of the condition type and then you mark that condition type as manual, system will not do the price determination in the purchase order. Once you enter that condition manually, then only system will do the price determination process and then will return the prices from the condition record. So for condition types which are time dependent in nature, that is which have condition records saved against them, generally it is recommended to keep this checkbox as deactivated. So you can see all these conditions are marked as manual. So when you will create a purchase order, these conditions will not come as default in the pricing procedure. If you want to add these conditions, then you will have to enter these condition types manually in the purchasing document. Then you have this required column. Now if you activate this particular checkbox against any of these condition type, then you will not be able to save the purchase order unless you make entry against that particular condition type. Okay, so that condition type will become a required condition type for your purchasing document. Okay, then you have this column called statistical. Now if this checkbox is marked against any of these condition type, then the value of such condition type will not be considered in the calculation of the net price of the purchasing document. So you can see these tax values and these freight charges are marked as statistical. So the values entered against these condition types will not get added to the net price of your document. And these condition type will only be there in your purchasing document to show the calculation and finally determine the effective price. Then you have this column called relevant for account determination. Now this particular column is applicable for SD module, and this is basically to enter the account key against statistical condition types. Then you have this print type, which basically controls whether this condition type will be printed in the output of your purchasing document or not. Then you have this column called subtotal. Now this is a very important column. Through this column only you will be able to save the subtotals in your system, and through this column only you will be able to tell the system that which condition type is to be considered as gross price. So you can see against these two condition type, the subtotal is entered as 9. Now if you take a drop down, this 9 stands for gross value. That is, when you make entries against these condition types, system will consider that value as the gross value, based on which further calculations will be done. That is, based on which the net price will get calculated and the effective price will get calculated. Then you can see against these rows also, where you want to calculate some value, you can assign an entry here and system will save this subtotal against that particular variable. So if you take a drop down, you can see 7 stands for KOMP_BONBA. So when you will save this purchase order, system will save the values which are calculated against this row to this particular variable, and you can use this particular value to do further calculations or to do further reporting. Okay, so if you go down in this particular pricing procedure, you will find that against this row, this subtotal S has been maintained. This S stands for the effective price. You can see here the S is to copy values to the effective value of the purchase order. So whatever value is calculated against this row, system will transfer to the effective value of the purchasing document line item. Okay, so to calculate the gross value and the effective value, we have to enter these indicators in this particular pricing procedure. The net value system will always calculate automatically by adding the discount and surcharges to the gross value. So you can see the subtotal column is basically to save the subtotal values against various variables, which can be used for reporting purpose and further calculation purpose. Then you have this requirement column, which basically contains a particular routine. Now first system will read this routine, and if the condition which is entered in this routine is satisfied, then only system will return this particular condition type in the pricing procedure. So this column is basically a prerequisite to propose this particular condition type in the pricing procedure in your purchasing document. So first system will read what is entered in this particular routine. Once this is satisfied, then only system will call this particular condition type. Then you have these two columns, that is for alternate calculation condition amount and alternate condition base value. Now against this column, you can enter a particular routine which will basically calculate an alternate condition amount and will populate against this particular condition type and will replace the standard condition amount which is calculated through standard formula. Let's say that you have a discount condition which has calculation type as percentage. So from the standard formula, system will apply that percentage on the net price and then will return the condition value. But if you want to deviate from this standard formula, then you can enter that particular formula in this particular column here. So this is also a kind of a routine which will basically replace the standard formula for calculating the condition value. And here you have this alternate condition base value. This is also a routine which will basically replace the formula which determines the base value for calculating the condition value. That is, in the same example, for any discount, the base value is either the net price or the step number which you enter in this from column. But if you want to deviate from these two standard methodologies, then you can enter a particular routine here, and system will ignore the standard methodology to determine the base value and will determine the base value depending upon the routine that you enter in this particular column here. Then you have this column for account key. Now this particular account key is used specifically where purchase account management has been activated against your company code. So if you have activated the purchase account management, then separate entries are to be posted against various GL accounts for reporting against purchase account management. Then this particular account key will come into picture, and this account key you will enter against all those condition types which have been marked as accruals in the configuration. Okay, so you can see against all these condition types, this account key is entered for facilitating GL determination for purchase account management posting. Okay, and finally you have this accruals key which is there for the GL determination for accrual entries. That is, if you have a freight charge which you have to pay to a separate vendor, then when you post your goods receipt, you must have a separate accounting line in the financial document which is created against the material document. That particular financial entry you will clear and you will process payment against the third party vendor. So to have that particular separate accounting line, you must have a accrual key entered against such condition type in the pricing procedure, and you will have to maintain the GL against all these accrual keys in the automatic account determination table. So you can see against all these condition types which are there for provisions, you have these accrual keys. Okay, so in this way we discussed all these columns that are there in the pricing procedure. Now let's see how this pricing procedure is determined by the system through the combination of purchase organization and vendor schema group. Okay, so we'll go back. And you can see we have link for define schema groups. So let's execute this. And you can see we have defined schema group for suppliers, define schema group for purchasing organizations, and then assign schema group to purchasing organizations. So as we discussed earlier, for vendors, the schema groups are defined in the configuration and then entered in the vendor master data. For purchase organizations, the schema group are defined in the configuration and are assigned in the configuration only. Okay, so first of all, let's open this define schema group for suppliers, and you can see here you will have a key and a description, and this particular schema group will be available in the drop down in the respective field in the vendor master. So whenever you will be maintaining the vendor master, you will have this schema group field available in the purchasing view. There, if you take a drop down, you will find all these entries appearing there, and through this you can maintain the schema group for supplier in the master data of the vendor. Okay, now let's go back, and you can see we have defined schema group for purchasing organization. So let's double click this, and you can see again you have a key and a description. Now this schema group will basically be used to group together multiple purchasing organizations under one umbrella. Okay, so let's go back, and you can see we have finally assigned schema groups to purchasing organizations. So if you double click this, here you will assign your purchase organizations to the schema groups that you have created in the previous step. Okay, so we have schema group for suppliers and schema group for purchasing organizations. The schema group for supplier will be entered in the master data of the vendor. The schema group for purchasing organization will be assigned to the purchasing organization in this particular configuration. Now let's see how the pricing procedure is assigned to the combination of these two schema groups. So we'll go back, and you can see we have defined schema determination. So let's execute this, and here you can configure the pricing procedure determination for standard purchase orders and for stock transport orders also. So we'll go to this link, that is determine calculation schema for standard purchase order. And here you can see we have these two columns for schema group for purchase organization and schema group for supplier. Okay, this entry will come from the purchase organization, which you will enter in your purchase order. This entry will come from the purchasing data of the vendor, which you will enter in your purchase order. And after combining these two entries, system will determine which pricing procedure is to be called in your purchasing document. Okay, so you can see against these two combinations, this pricing procedure has been entered, and you can have multiple combinations for this schema group for purchase organization and schema group for suppliers, and any of these columns can be kept as blank also. So you can see we have these blank entries against which the schema group of supplier has been entered and the pricing procedure has been maintained, and we have blank entries against the schema group for supplier also, against which you can enter the schema group for purchase organization and you can configure the pricing procedure. And you have one entry also for blank schema group purchase organization and blank schema group for supplier, against which this pricing procedure has been entered. Now from your purchasing document, these two entities will get determined, and if the system is not able to find the combination of those two entries in this table, then system will trigger the standard pricing procedure, and that is RM0000. Now that we have seen the whole configuration, now what we'll do, we'll create a custom condition table, access sequence and a condition type, and then we'll create our own pricing procedure where we'll maintain this condition type, and then we'll maintain the condition record and create the purchase order and see how the pricing procedure is determined and how the condition record is also determined in the purchase order. Okay, so first of all, we'll create the condition table. So we'll go to T-code M/03, and you can see this is for creating the condition table. So let's enter table number 901. Let's press enter. And you can see we have this field catalog from where we can select the field and create our own condition table. So what we'll do, we'll create a condition table for the combination of vendor code, material code and plant code. Okay, so first of all, we'll search for supplier. So you can see we have this field for supplier. Then we'll search for material. So you can see we have this field for material. and then we'll search for plant code. And you can see we have this field for plant. So let's double click this also, and you can see we have selected all these three fields in our table. Now let's generate this table and let's save this condition table. We'll click on local object, and you can see we have created this table A901. So as we discussed earlier, you will be entering the number 901 while creating the table. The system will add this prefix A here and will create the table A901. Okay, and if you want to access this table, then you can go to T code SE16N and you can enter this table number here A901, and if you press enter, you can see system will show you all these combinations against which you will maintain the condition record. Okay, now let's create the access sequence. So we'll go to T code M/07. We'll select this particular standard access sequence and we'll click on copy and we'll enter Z004 here. Let's press enter and we'll click on copy all. And you can see we have copied this access sequence. Now let's select this access sequence and double click on this accesses folder. And you can see all these standard tables are copied from the standard access sequence 0002. Now let's add our custom table that we just created now. So we'll click on new entries. We'll enter the number 80 here and we'll enter the table number 901 and we'll mark this exclusive checkbox. And let's press enter. Let's go back. And you can see we have added this table. Now let's select this particular line and let's double click on these fields here. Let's press enter and you can see system shows you the assignment of these fields from your purchasing document to your condition table. So now let's save this access sequence. And you can see we have created this access sequence where we have added this table number 901 at access number 80. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll create a custom discount condition where we'll maintain this access sequence. So we'll go to T code M/06 and we'll copy from the standard discount condition, that is RA00. So we'll go to that condition. We'll select this condition type, we'll click on copy and we'll enter condition type as RAZ0 and we'll mention discount percentage custom and we'll enter our access sequence that we just created now. So if you take a drop down, you can see we created the access sequence Z004. So we'll select this and we'll press enter. So you can see system has copied to this new condition type. Now let's save this condition type. So what we have done, we have created a custom condition type RAZ0 where we have assigned this access sequence which contains our condition table containing the combination of material, vendor and plant. Now let's create the pricing procedure. So we'll go back and we'll go to T code M/08. And what we'll do, we'll copy from the standard pricing procedure only. So we'll select the standard pricing procedure and we'll click on copy and we'll enter ZM0001 here. Let's press enter. We'll click on copy all and we'll press enter. And you can see system has copied to this new pricing procedure. Let's first save this pricing procedure. And now we'll select this pricing procedure and we'll double click on control data folder. And now what we'll do, we'll add our new discount condition type here and we'll remove some of the condition types from this particular pricing procedure. So what we'll do, we'll remove these condition types. And you can see we have now gross price, discount and surcharges, taxes, freights, and cash discount. Now once we have deleted all these condition type, let's first save this pricing procedure. So what we have done, we have created our custom pricing procedure. Now let's add our custom condition type that we just created, and we'll add this custom condition type at step 10 only because this is a discount condition. So we'll click on new entries. We'll enter step as 10, counter as 10, and we'll enter the condition type and we'll press enter. And you can see we have added this particular condition type. Let's save this pricing procedure. So you can see now we have added this particular condition type in our pricing procedure, and we have also maintained the access sequence against this particular condition type. Okay, now let's change these steps here. So we have to calculate the effective price at this stage. So that will be equal to sum of net value including tax and these delivery cost and the cash discount. So we'll have 22 in the from column and we'll have 35 here in the to column. So what system will do? System will add from this particular step to this particular step and will return against this particular line. Okay, and here we'll enter effective price. And you can see against this effective price, the subtotal S has been maintained. So this value will get transferred to the effective price field. You can see here, S stands for KOMPEFFWR. Okay, and now let's do the configuration for determination of this pricing procedure. So we'll go to SPRO, SAP reference IMG, materials management, purchasing, conditions, define price determination process, and we have defined schema groups. So first what we'll do, we'll define the schema group for supplier and for purchase organization. So we'll double click here and we'll click on new entries. We'll enter ZZ and we'll enter custom vendor schema. We'll press enter and let's save this configuration. Now let's go back and we'll create our schema group for purchase organization. So we'll click on new entries. We'll enter M001 and we'll enter description as custom purchase organization schema, and let's save this configuration. Now let's go back. Now what we have done, we have created schema group for suppliers and schema group for purchase organization. Now we'll have to assign our purchase organization to our schema group for purchase organization. So we'll double click here and we'll click on position and let's enter our purchase organization. And we'll assign this purchase organization to the purchase organization schema that we just created now. Let's save this configuration. So now what we have done, we have created a vendor schema, we have created a purchase organization schema, and we have assigned this purchase organization schema to our purchase organization. Now let's assign our custom pricing procedure to the combination of these two entities, that is the purchase organization schema and the vendor schema. So we'll go back and we'll go to define schema determination and we'll go to determine calculation schema for standard purchase order. We'll click on new entries and we'll enter schema group for purchase organization here. We'll enter schema group for supplier here. And we'll enter the pricing procedure that we just created now. So we'll go to this screen here. Let's copy this pricing procedure from here. And we'll enter in this configuration. And let's save this configuration. So now finally what we have done, we have assigned the combination of this schema group for purchase organization and schema group for vendor to this particular pricing procedure that we just created now. Now we'll create vendor master and there we'll maintain this schema group for supplier, and then we'll create our purchase order and see how this pricing procedure is determined by the system. So we'll go to T code BP. We'll click on organization. We'll select BP role as FLVN01. We'll click on create. Now let's enter some information here. And we'll click on purchasing. We'll enter our purchase organization. Let's enter the order currency and the payment terms. And if we scroll down, you can see we have a field called schema group supplier. Now this is the field where we have to enter the schema group for supplier that we just created through configuration. So if you take a drop down, you can see we have just created this schema group. So we'll select double Z here. We'll press enter and let's save this vendor master. So you can see we have created this vendor master. Now let's create the purchase order and see how our pricing procedure is determined by the system. So we'll go to T code ME21N and let's copy our supplier code that we just created now. And let's enter the supplier code in the purchase order. Let's press enter. Let's enter our material code here. Let's enter the plant code. Now you can see system proposes a pricing procedure in this particular table here. And this pricing procedure is shown under the tab conditions. Okay. Now in this purchase order, we have entered the purchase organization as M001 here. So from this purchase organization, system will determine the purchase organization schema group, and from this vendor master, system will determine the vendor schema group, and based on the combination of these two schema groups, system will determine the pricing procedure in this purchase order. So now let's verify the pricing procedure which has been determined in this purchase order. Now where from I can check which pricing procedure was determined by the system. So to check the pricing procedure, you can click on this button called analysis. So if you click on this button, you can see this pricing procedure was determined by the system, which basically contains all these condition types and these subtotals. Okay, against this condition type will be shown all these folders, and against the subtotals will be shown this particular icon to show that this is a subtotal. Okay, and in this table also system will show all the condition types and subtotals and the messages which are issued against each of these condition type. Now if we go back, you can see in this pricing procedure only 3 condition types are listed. Although in our pricing procedure we had entered multiple condition types, you can see in our custom pricing procedure that we created, we entered all these condition types. But in the purchase order, only 3 condition types are triggered by the system. Now, why this is happening? This is happening because all the remaining condition types are either marked as manual in the pricing procedure, or they have access sequence assigned and system is not able to determine the condition record. If we go to this pricing procedure, you can see there are certain condition types which have been marked as manual, and there are certain condition types which have access sequence assigned to them. Now once you assign access sequence, then if the system is not able to find the condition record, those condition types will not be triggered in your purchasing document. So you can see this PB00 also has access sequence assigned. This RA01 is also assigned to an access sequence. Let's verify that. So we'll go to M/06. And if we open RA01, you can see this array01 has been assigned to this access sequence. So if you have assigned any condition type with an access sequence, and if you haven't maintained any condition record, then the system will not trigger that particular condition type in your purchasing document. And also, if you have marked any condition type as manual in the pricing procedure, then also system will not be able to trigger that in your pricing procedure. And this you can also verify by the messages which are triggered by the system. So if you click on this analysis button, you can see against each condition type, system has issued certain messages. And you can see against each of these condition type, system shows all these messages that either they are manual conditions or they had access sequence assigned to them, and certain requirement routines which were entered in the access sequence were not fulfilled, or the condition record is missing. And you can see this particular condition type we just created now, and since we have not maintained any condition record, so system is telling that the condition record is missing. And you can see against this condition type SKTO, system is also telling you that the percentage is copied from terms of payment table. So if we go back, you can see only 3 condition types were triggered because they were not marked as manual and they did not have any access sequence assigned to them. Now, if you want to add the manual conditions, then you can add them manually by entering in this particular column here. Now, what we'll do, first of all, we'll maintain the condition record against the discount condition that we just created, and then we'll enter prices in this particular purchase order and see how system determines the net price and effective price. So we'll go to MEK1. And we'll enter our custom condition type here. Let's press enter. And you can see system proposes a list of all the tables which are there in the access sequence. The access sequence which has been assigned in the configuration of this condition type. If we verify the configuration of this condition type, if we go to this configuration here, if you go to RAZ0, you can see under RAZ0 we have assigned this access sequence, and this access sequence has been assigned to a list of tables which are being shown on the screen here, and this is our custom table that we created and assigned to our custom access sequence. Okay, so let's select this particular table here and let's press enter. So you can see you have supplier, material code and plant code against which you can enter the condition amount. Okay, so let's enter our plant code here. And let's enter a discount of 5% here. Let's press enter and let's save this condition record. Now let's go to the purchase order screen, and to re-trigger the pricing, we'll click on update and we'll double click on carry out new pricing. And you can see now system has populated this discount from the condition record that we just saved now. And what we have entered in that condition record, we have entered this vendor code, this material code and this plant code. So based on the combination of all these 3 fields, system has determined this condition record and populated in this pricing procedure. Okay, now you can see this gross price is coming in this pricing procedure. Now why this gross price is coming? Because in our pricing procedure, we had 2 entries against the gross price, that is PB00 and PBXX. Now what is the difference between these 2 condition type? Now PB00 is the condition type which is time dependent condition. That is, you have access sequence assigned to this condition type. So if you do not maintain the condition record, this condition type will not get called in the pricing procedure in the purchasing document. The condition type PBXX is the time independent condition where no access sequence has been maintained. If we verify the configuration of this condition type, let's go to the configuration and we'll open PBXX. And if you double click this, you can see no access sequence is available against this condition type. So this is the gross price which the end user has to manually enter in the purchase order, against which the condition record will not be maintained. So you have 2 gross price entered in the pricing procedure. One is time dependent, that is with condition record, and one is time independent, that is without condition record. Okay, so now let's enter the prices in our purchase order. So we'll go to the PO screen, we'll enter some PO quantity here, and let's enter a gross price here as 100 rupees, and let's press enter. So you can see from this 100 rupees, system calculates the condition value as 10,000 rupees. And from where this 10,000 is getting calculated, this is getting calculated from the calculation type configuration of this condition type PBXX. If you want to see the configuration from this screen, then you can select this condition type and click on this icon here, and you can see the calculation type is C, that is for quantity. So the amount is 100 rupees and the calculation type is on quantity. So system will multiply the PO quantity with this amount to arrive at the condition value. Okay, and for this condition type, the calculation type is percentage. So system will apply this percentage on this value and then calculate the condition value. Okay, and this is a discount condition type, so system will mention this condition value with a negative sign, and you can verify this by selecting this and clicking on this icon, and you can see the condition class is discount or surcharge, the calculation type is percentage. Okay, so in this way system calculates the condition value for each of the condition type. Now if you want to enter some conditions manually, then you can enter through this particular field here. So if you go to the pricing procedure, you can see we have all these manual conditions. So if you want to add this condition to your purchase order, then you have to manually enter this. So let's enter this in the purchase order. So we'll enter RB00 here, and let's enter 10 rupees here, and let's press enter. Now you see this condition type was applied below this condition type. Now why this happened? Because both these condition types have same steps assigned to them. So these condition types which have the same step will be arranged in the pricing procedure in the same sequence in which they are entered manually. So since I entered this RB00 after this discount manually, so system will add this condition type after this particular discount. Now let's add a freight condition and see where that appears on this pricing procedure. So we'll enter FRA1. And we'll enter 5% here, and let's press enter. And now you can see this FRA1 comes below all these condition types. Now why this is happening? This is happening because this condition type has a different step number than these condition types. If we go to the pricing procedure, we can see this freight has a step number 31 and this discount has a step number 10. So since this condition type has a higher step number, so it will always come below these condition types. Now let's enter one more discount and see where that appears on the pricing procedure. So we'll again go to the purchase order creation screen, and we'll enter one more discount here. So let's enter a surcharge here. So we'll enter ZA00 and we'll enter 5% here, and let's press enter. Now you see this surcharge, although I have entered manually after this freight condition, but it appears at this level. Now why this is happening? Because this particular condition type has a step number which is lower than the step number of this condition type. So even if I entered this condition type manually after this condition type, system rearranged this condition type as per the step number which have been assigned to the corresponding condition types. Okay, and for the condition type which have same step number, system will arrange them as per the manual entries being done in the purchase order screen. Okay, so since I have entered this particular surcharge after this discount, so system is first taking this discount and then this surcharge, and then system is calculating this net value. Okay, so in this way you can understand the significance of step number and counter. Now the counter will only work when the manual checkbox is not marked in the pricing procedure, and if the manual checkbox is not marked, then all these condition type will be arranged as per the counters that have been entered against the corresponding condition type. But if the conditions are marked manually, then the counter has no significance. Then depending upon how you enter those condition type manually in the purchase order screen, they will be arranged in the pricing procedure. Okay, so in this way you can see this is the gross price, and how system understand that this is the gross price. System understands through this subtotal 9 here. Okay, and then system applies all the discounts on this particular gross price in this purchase order creation screen. Okay, and once all the discounts and surcharges are applied, system calculates the net value, and then you have this tax entry and you have this freight entry. Now to arrive at the effective price, system will add the net price to the tax and the freight and will finally calculate the effective price, which is shown in this particular row here. Now let's see how this cash discount can be entered in this purchasing document. So as we have seen, this cash discount is dependent upon the payment terms. So let's enter a payment term in this purchase order. So we'll go to this delivery invoice tab, and this payment term we had entered in this vendor code. So this was defaulted. Let's take a drop down and let's select this payment term which has a 2% cash discount. So let's select this. Let's press enter and let's go to the pricing procedure and let's click on update. And this time what we'll do, we'll double click on this particular option, that is copy manual price elements and redetermine the others. So let's double click this. And you can see system automatically applies a cash discount of 2% here. Now where from this 2% is coming? This is coming from the payment terms against which a 2% cash discount is offered by the vendor if the payment is done within 14 days. Okay, so this cash discount is dependent upon this payment terms. Okay, so in this way we saw how we can maintain the prices in a purchase order. Now we had a custom discount against which we had maintained the condition record. Now from this screen, if you want to see the condition record, then you can simply select that condition type and click on this condition record. And system will show you that we had maintained a condition record of 5% against a combination of this supplier, material and plant code. And if you want to see the table number, then you can click on this icon here and you can see the table number is 901, which has a combination of supplier, material and plant code. Okay, now if you go back and if you click on this analysis, you can also analyze this particular condition from this table here. So if you expand this, you can see all these accesses are shown against this condition type from the access sequence which is entered in the configuration of this condition type, and against all these accesses, condition record has been found against the last access, that is access number 080, which basically contains this particular condition record. And if you click on this access here, you will see you have a combination of these three fields and a condition record has been found. Okay, and if you click on this condition record, system will again show you the same condition record which we saw earlier. So in this way we covered the whole configuration of the pricing procedure. We saw the configuration of condition types, condition tables, access sequence and pricing procedure, and we saw how we can configure the pricing procedure determination through vendor schema group and purchase organization schema group. Now finally let's see summary of all the steps that are required to configure this pricing procedure. So you can see this is the summary of all the steps that we discussed in this video. I have given all the configuration steps here that you have to do to configure the pricing procedure and the price determination in the purchase order. Then these are the master data that you need to maintain for this pricing procedure to get determined and the prices to get determined in your purchasing document. And then finally we saw that when we created the purchase order, the relevant pricing procedure was determined and the prices were also determined for the condition types against which the condition record was saved in the system. Now in our upcoming videos, we'll discuss about the info record and the contracts in detail. There we'll see how we can create the info record and contracts and how we can save the condition records against these two documents. So in this way, we have covered the whole pricing procedure and price determination process in SAP MM. I hope that you've understood this concept and I hope that you've liked this video. If you like my videos, then please like and subscribe to my channel and please join my channel to get exclusive perks. So see you in the next video. Till then, thank you so much for supporting me. Thanks a lot.